I just want to start this video off by asking a question. Were you curious about the meaning of cadaver? What do the masks mean? What does the lamb painting mean? Why the Macbeth poster? What do the actors represent? What does Matthias represent? Why were the kids trying on clothes? What's with the falling red dresses? What does the ending mean? What does the movie mean? Well, like all my movie ending explain videos, I did my research and I really thought about the film, and I feel like now I can see what the movie is trying to say. To break it down, I'm going to use 3 themes. 1, the theme of social class, where we'll talk about the 3 social classes: the masks, the lamb painting, the Macbeth poster, and the kids trying on clothes at the beginning of the film. 2, the luxury of ignorance, where we'll talk briefly about Matthias's ignorance and how he manipulates his actors. And 3, living versus surviving, where we'll talk about Matthias's ignorance versus Leo's hope. And the red dresses, and Matthias's daughter. And how everything ties in with the very end of the film. And if you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and a comment, it helps so much. And if you want to see more of these, please make sure to subscribe as well. And shouts out to Josephine D'Souza for requesting this video. Now let's get started. Theme number 1, social class. Okay, so in this film, once we reach the hotel, we are given 3 different groups: the guests, the performers, and the showmen. And these groups represent 3 different social classes of our modern world: lower class, upper class, and highest class, aka billionaire corporate owner. The guests wear masks to represent the common perception that the low class are insignificant to society, unimportant, and replaceable. In the real world, lower income citizens usually work jobs and live lives that strip them of their individuality. These positions are often very easy to replace and have no identity, just like the mask that the guests wear. As struggling everyday workers, the lower class are often deemed unrecognizable passers-by of each other, until they see someone with more notoriety, talent, power, and recognizability, which would be, of course, the upper class. The performers don't wear masks to represent the upper class's perceived importance to society and recognizability. The upper class in our world usually work more entertaining jobs and live more entertaining lives, which is represented by their jobs in the hotel in the film. They're performers. They do things that only the lower class can dream about and be fascinated by watching online or on TV or in movies. Just catching a glimpse into the daily life of a celebrity, a public figure, is enough to distract from a life of struggle and uncertainty. This is why the guests in the film decide to follow the actor who is the most interesting and get to catch entertaining glimpses into these personal situations. And sometimes in certain scenes like this one, it doesn't matter whether it's performance or real interaction. Either is entertaining as long as it's famous figures that we all recognize. Matthias represents the corporate billionaire owners who truly run the world behind the scenes. They entertain the lower class and provide for the upper class to distract both classes from the wicked and immoral things they do behind the scenes. And in order to do these wicked and immoral things, they use the lowest class of people who have no choice but to carry out the work. Reflectively, in the film, of course, Matthias uses starving people to be the food for himself, his performers, and once for his guests. There's a big theme about the immoral road to power in this film, which is why we see the Macbeth poster in Leo's house. The whole story of Macbeth is all about the rise and fall of a selfish and remorseless king, very similar to Matthias' story in this film. Even the nuclear war mentioned in this film that created this famine was a battle created by leaders in which the lower class were constantly sacrificed. Throughout the film, we return to multiple paintings of lambs, most notably the head of a lamb cut off, laying on a plate. This very obviously represents the innocent guests who are used as food, and the wolf being the hungry corporate owners. But also, in Christianity, the term sacrificial lamb represents sacrifice for the greater good, which is what Matthias believes the guests are. The lamb also represents Christ as both suffering and triumphant, and in the film we see the guests as suffering and eventually triumphant. I also think the very opening scene with the children happily trying on clothes was purposely put at the very beginning of the movie. The scene represents our lives as children at their purest form, before social constructs and classism. We are freely trying on different identities to discover who we truly are as individuals. Before greed, before power, before ignorance, which brings me to theme number 2, the luxury of ignorance. In this film, we have Matthias, who in order to live and in order to keep his performers alive, he depends on ignorance. The actors never question where their food comes from, and you would really expect them to since they're in the middle of a post-apocalyptic famine. The situation is just too good to be true. And I believe the actors never question where their food comes from because they suspect that however they're getting it must be harmful or immoral in some way. But if they never know about it, or ask about it, or see how it's made, they can at least imagine that it is not that bad. It takes Leo literally showing them how their food is made for them to find out how their food is actually made. This is reflected in society, the way we sustain our modern lives. The way our technology, clothes, and foods are created is certainly not ethical in a lot of ways. However, as long as we can't see it being made, we're often okay with having it, and we can imagine that the making of it isn't as bad as it actually is. This is why Matthias doesn't allow his performers to visit the tunnels. What they don't know will never hurt them. Which brings me to theme number 3. Living versus surviving. In this film, the two major characters use their powerful imaginations for different purposes. For Matthias, it's ignorance. For Leo, it's hope. In the previous theme, I spoke about how Matthias uses ignorance to live a comfortable life. But he also, very importantly, uses ignorance to replace his daughter who passed away with Leo's daughter, Alice. He realizes they look alike, so he lets Alice into the show, steals her, and even dresses her up in his daughter's clothes. Leo, on the other hand, uses hope for survival. She says to Jacob multiple times in the film, all she can do is hope. This is why, even when Jacob thinks their daughter is likely dead, Leo has visions of Alice calling out for her mom and sees visuals of Alice's dresses falling from the ceiling. She even picks up a red cloth of different material, thinking it's Alice's dress. All of these visuals and visions represent Leo's relentlessness effort to cling on to hope. So when we compare Leo and Matthias, Matthias has a line that sums up the difference between the two of them. Do you want to live, or do you want to survive? Matthias, on one hand, uses ignorance to feel something and live. Leo uses hope to maintain her morals and survive. So, in the final scene, after Matthias is killed, Leo is walking home in this falsely happy ending. She recognizes she still has a morality, but she's back to starvation, poverty, and crime. Then she looks back and sees the shining hotel where she knows she could have lived a lie, but with food, warmth, and safety. She wonders if she truly made the right choice for her and her daughter. So this final scene represents the major question of the film. Either live a fruitful high-class life of ignorance, or survive at the lowest class, desperately holding on to hope. Alright, that's my analysis. Please let me know your thoughts, theories, and interpretations in the comments because I would love to discuss this super crazy symbolic movie. I hope you subscribe so I can see you again. Thank you so much for watching. See you later.